Good morning. Welcome to Melissa Chambers Consulting Wednesday Words of Wisdom. I hope everyone is doing good this morning. We're going to talk about grief today because it is heavy on my heart right now, and I just wanted to take a few minutes to discuss it. I always do say that, it's important to feel our feelings. And again, right now, that's just what's heavy on my heart. And so, like I said, I wanted to discuss it. Years ago, I thought that when people talked about grief, it was about someone dying, someone passing away. And obviously now, I was much younger then, I realized that grief can be about dying, but it can also be about a lot of things. We can grieve a lot of things, and it's not necessarily just about death. And I think that, when we're talking about a loved one living with dementia, and those of you that have listened to me over and over again probably have heard me say this more than once, but we are grieving our loved one through the whole process. It's not just mom or dad or husband or wife or whomever anymore. It is mom or dad or husband or wife living with some sort of dementia diagnosis. And as their brain changes, they are changing. And every time they have a change, we are going through the grieving process over and over and over repeatedly, because we are losing another part of them. We're not necessarily losing them, but we're losing little parts of them over and over and over. So part of being a caregiver is grieving almost constantly. We might be in total denial. Well, let me explain. That is part of the grieving process. Part of the grieving process is denying any problem at all. A lot of times I find myself saying, well, if I just ignore it, maybe it'll go away. But that's not true. It doesn't go away. But that's part of our, I guess you might want to say, defense mechanisms. And I am no expert in grief. I don't claim to be an expert in anything. But grieving is, denial is part of the grieving process, rather. And being angry, being sad or depressed, those are all parts of the grieving process. So when you're grieving, whatever it is that you're grieving, just understand that you are, you will be going through these cycles, and it could be years. The other thing that I've understood about grieving is that it's not something that, it's not like on a timeline. We're not, we don't have this thing, whatever it is, a death or a loved one living with some sort of dementia diagnosis or whatever else we might be grieving. We don't just grieve for this certain amount of time and then everything is magically okay. As time passes and things surround us and we go through the grieving process and that cycle, and we allow ourselves to feel our feelings, I do believe that we heal a little bit. But that just, I find, just becomes a part of who we are. It is just like we have a life before this event that we're grieving, and then we have a life after it, and it just becomes a part of who we are. And so I think the better we can understand that, the better that it helps us, now specifically talking about being a caregiver of someone living with some sort of dementia, um, I think the more we understand that, the better we can understand the way that we're feeling. You know, we might be feeling like we wake up in the morning and we're feeling great and we're like, oh, you know, we don't want to believe this is our life. And and that could be denial, and that could be part of the grieving process. Or we might wake up and feel like, oh my god, I can't get moving, I'm like overcome with this sadness, or overcome with this anger, or I'm just mad at the world and I'm just going to be in a bad mood and whatever. Like those are all part of the grieving process. That is us grieving. And so the more we realize that, the more we understand that, and the more that we accept that we are just going to be going through these feelings, and the more that we actually feel our feelings, it helps us to move on to the next step in that grieving process. So I'm going to end here. Like I said, I don't claim to be an expert on anything. I am most certainly not an expert on grieving, but I do know that much. And so for anyone who is also grieving right now, just know that my heart is with you. And if there's anything that I can do to help, please contact me. If you have any questions about anything, please don't hesitate to contact me on melissachambersconsulting.com on the contact page, or up above on this page there is our phone number, our email, and all different ways to get a hold of us. So please don't hesitate. Thanks, and have a good week.